Tonight I'd had one or two things planned out and written up, and I was all ready to go. But at the last second, I thought I might do something a little bit different. This just sort of came to me. It's something I've thought about for many, many years, and I thought by sharing it, it might resonate with more people because I think ultimately this might be true of everyone, at least in one way or another. My own personal spiritual development, I think, has been somewhat different than what I originally thought it was going to be, or should I say, the way I thought it was going to develop. When I started out as a child, and I was one of those kids who was very much into the belief systems I was born into. It wasn't just something cute my parents did. It was a very deep belief system. And I suppose you could say that I was very much into theology and philosophy from, I don't know, sometimes I think age one, whether that's really true or not. But by the time I was getting to be 12 or 13, this was a really, really big deal for me. And at the time, spirituality for me was about trying to keep things pure, trying to remain consistent and be what I was and hold to who and exactly what I was as a Christian, as a particular denomination within Christianity. And after, let's say, the next 10 years, when I got into my early 20s, and I simply realized that I was no longer even remotely what I'd been. Because when I was younger, I had, for the most part, accepted a long list of various beliefs. And regardless of the fact that all through high school and even junior high, I had done nothing but argue with all of my Bible teachers. And this just seemed to be what I did. Anytime I encountered everyone of any type of authority within my religion, all I did was argue with them. And the way I think that always made sense to me was, well, my version of this belief system is true, and they're just crazy. They're from this ancient traditional gobbledygook that I just don't believe in. And what I have is really what the real meaning is, and they just need to chill out. And regardless of the fact that really my beliefs were no longer, in my opinion, even Christian, or at least not what most Christians would consider Christian. God just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger to me. And I was traveling really from this sort of monotheistic, or you might call it tritheistic, version of a belief system, way over into panentheism and pantheism, and including all the wonderful steps along the way, like polytheism, and up into the realms of where dualism and monism combine and become something I'll talk about in another video. But at some point in my early 20s, I came to realize that what had really happened along my life was I hadn't been consistent to anything. And that maybe consistency had never been the point. That every time I had run into a theological, philosophical, what have you concept, I had either taken or rejected it. And I'd done so amazingly quickly. There were even a number of things that I had rejected at the moment and then accepted later when I really thought about them. Often, in my opinion, due to the dynamic that occurs in an argument when two people get together and they talk about something and both sides sort of solidify into their own whatever they believe, and they throw things at each other, and there is no real ability to come to understand what the other person is saying until later. You know, for the moment, it's just an argument, and later on, it has its effect. Which is why, whenever I argue with people now, or discuss, or whatever you want to call it, truly it should be a discussion, but often it winds up being an argument. I know that the actual effect will always come later. Whether I've had an effect on them or they've had an effect on me, for the moment, it is often just a polarized argument. Obviously, that's also what I try very much to fight now and remain open even during a discussion so that I don't just polarize into my belief system. But the point is that every step along the way, I'd run into these concepts and I'd either accepted or rejected them. And of course, ones I'd accepted wound up taking me further and further and further out. God had gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. The concepts had gotten bigger and bigger until at this point, I don't even think I could call myself a pantheist. To me, omnism is almost kind of a form of hyper-pantheism, if you want to put it that way. And even omnism is really just a word that I use because it's the closest I can come to. It's the only term that's ever resonated with me enough to say, okay, I'm an omnist. And admittedly, part of the reason I can even solidify myself as an omnist is simply because it's a term that isn't that well defined, and so I can sort of define it myself. It's really something that's slowly becoming more and more defined by the people who define themselves that way. So ultimately, what I found fascinating about this journey of mine is that I've come to look at it less as an evolution, as let's say a linear evolution of belief, and more a journey of discovery. Let me see how to put this. Have you ever heard a sculptor say, there's a shape within this stone, and I'm freeing it from the stone. I'm slowly chiseling away until that shape that I see inside it comes out. Or maybe that I don't see inside it, but it's just there. There's this shape within that stone, and I'm slowly unveiling it. And to me, I think this is the way all of us really are. We have this core thing that I'm not even going to try to define. I'm not going to try and put any kind of label on it. But it's something inside us that believes something. And as we go through life, we start defining what that is. And regardless of the fact that we define ourselves as this and this and this and that, even let's say a person is born a Christian, and when I say born a Christian, I mean they were raised Christian, and they continued being Christian, and by the end of their lives they were still Christian, whatever denomination they are. I think you would even look at them and see that their belief system had evolved all the way through. There's virtually no way, or I highly doubt that there's any way that belief system remained perfectly consistent. And my reasoning for that is this thing inside us recognizes truth, or at least it recognizes our truth. And so when we encounter those concepts, what we're really doing is we're moving towards what we actually are. We're moving towards that thing inside us that knows the truth but doesn't have color to put to it, doesn't have shape to put to it. And so as we encounter these concepts, as we encounter these religions, these ideologies, these philosophical concepts, existentialism, I'm not even going to try and go through all the possibilities, but when someone reads Ayn Rand, either they connect to her or they don't. When someone reads something the Dalai Lama said, either they connect to him or they don't. And as we connect and don't connect to all these various concepts, I think what's really happening is we're discovering who we are. We're discovering that belief system that's inside us all that's more like just a primal energy waiting to become something, waiting to be shaped. Or maybe more precisely, waiting to find its own shape. And so for me, my belief system is entirely dynamic. I'm no longer sitting around trying to say this is what I am. This is what I am. This is what I always want to be. I'm somehow going to remain true to whatever it is I believe at this moment. Because I know that at my age, assuming I don't die anytime too soon, my belief system is going to continue to evolve. I'm not going to believe the same thing I do today that I believe in 30 or 40 years. Now, I think it might be argued that part of my reason for moving over to an ideology like Omnism, or maybe I should say discovering an ideology like Omnism, or simply using that label, is because I'm purposely choosing an ideology that is fluid, that can literally be anything, that can move to anything. So, from a certain perspective, you could say that I'm really just trying to do the same thing I did as a child, try to pin things down to something that's consistent. In this case, something that's consistently dynamic, ever moving, ever changing, ever fluid. I don't know. I think this is something that might resonate with some people and might not, but I'm just putting it out there as my own personal experience, and I would like to see what other people's personal experience is like. Again, I'm the Urban Omnist, and I really do appreciate all you guys for spending time watching these videos, and I look forward to all the things we discover together. And guys, please don't forget to support us as much as possible by clicking subscribe, liking us on Facebook and Twitter, and please, 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 please send me those questions right at this address. Thank you very much. Again, I'm